Okay, I just want to do a little follow-up video. Things seem to have gone in the right direction with the Charlie Gard case. I think a combination of massive public interest and almost global interest in this case is actually, in a way, benefiting. I mean, it doesn't really have an effect on what the judge and the courts should be doing, but I think the consequences of taking the piss, or just passing through it like almost like a death order or a euthanasia order, or an order to terminate life or end life, however they want to call it, will obviously not be received well. And it's just going to be more of a stain. I think this is what people are realising now, thankfully, is that this is a Great Ormond Street management, senior management have brought this case against the parents. So all those little workers and all the nurses, cleaners, porters, whatever you want to call them, doctors and specialists, and all the good work that they've done, as soon as you start doing a silly little legal action against the parents, and their hospital presumably believes is essentially a brain dead baby. Yeah, once you start doing that, you're basically damaging your reputation. And all of our government services are based on trust. Trust is a very important element of the law. In fact, most of the law comes from some sort of trust at the end of the day. So once you're, especially as a corporation, if you in business, it's called like goodwill, or I think it's called goodwill. It's like your branding has a value. It's not something that can be always easily valued or quantified, but it has a value. So Coca-Cola would have a value for its brand. I think that's put in as goodwill on the balance sheets there. But I'm getting off topic. But essentially, Great Ormond Street Hospital has a pretty good reputation. I would say, everyone's aware of it in the country, especially for sick kids. There's a lot of profile around Great Ormond Street Hospital, especially around things like children in need and stuff like that. And they actually rely on £50 million worth of donations every year. So yeah, I mean, doing things like this could affect their funding. It might cost them money to provide this life support treatment to something that may not have much prospect of life, but the cost of taking a kid's parents to court and having a legal action against them, with some parents who have been very vocal about their opposition to any kind of desire to turn off the life support of this little one. You can see how, if the public get on board, the media get on board, and you create this media storm frenzy, it's very difficult to have a trial that can go ahead in a proper manner. But at the same time, then if any orders the court gives are always going to be absolutely scrutinised. Everyone's going to hate it, whether they say turn it off or don't turn it off. There's going to be people who say, yeah, you should have turned it off because of this. There's going to be people who say, how dare you to end life because of that. So there's always going to be an outcry, and that's only going to bring attention to the Great Ormond Street Hospital. And like I said, it's the management who've created this case against the parents. So it's their responsibility for these actions against the parents. So whatever the backlash is, obviously, maybe they were just following procedures. Who knows? But I wanted to bring it back. I'm reading this this article here by Daily Mail Online, or the Mail Online, and I was reading down it, and there's an interesting thing here. If you remember, my previous video had about was it Chris Gard standing up in court, or calling out in court about the Great Ormond Streets. I think it was the legal representatives. He turned to them and says, when are you going to start telling the truth in relation to Charlie's actual condition, and not this kind of, presume he thinks it's some sort of made-up, hopeless state of zombie vegetable state that the baby might be in the hospital bed. So now it seems like there was another outburst here, but I just want to explain this one to you, because in court last week, Charlie Gard's parents, again, I've already gone over the word parents, Connie Yates and Chris Gard, exploded with frustration as the hospital said they should be excluded. The hospital said, yeah? Great Ormond Street Hospital. Now, hospitals can't say anything, okay? So this is something that we've got very used to in our land, is using a what's in terms of, like, the government is horrible, or you might say, oh, the police did this to me, or the ambulance, or the hospital, or or your MP, all these things are what's, okay? So when you start saying that what's are doing things to you, it's like, oh, the bag of crisps hits me. I think the bin's going to get me, or that's basically how grammatically ridiculous it is. I know we use it in common parlance, but it is incorrect. So the parents basically exploded with frustration as the hospital said. The hospital said. So there we are. Just realise how grammatically crazy that is. They should be excluded from the make or break Great Ormond Street meeting. Jesus. Excluded. Okay, well, technically, they've never actually been in court. As long as you have a legal representative, as was previously mentioned by the judge said to the couple, "You have excellent legal representations. They can speak for you." That's exactly. So when you speak in their proceedings, their legal proceedings, they don't want to listen to you unless you're not represented. In which case, you need to be very careful what you say. But when you're not represented, it's very difficult for them to get like a contract with your joinder. So what they require you to do is, in most legal problems, they say go out and get yourself a solicitor, go out and get yourself a legal representation. So obviously they've done that, and thankfully it seems like they're good people. Just highlight again, Brick Court Chambers. I think they're doing it pro bono from what the judge mentioned in the last hearing. So good on them for doing that. But at the end of the day, this is a legal problem. So the legal society brought a legal action against two, dare I say, nothing wrong with this word, plebs. They're not legally experts. They're not legally qualified. I'm sure they're not. But again, you've got the full weight of the legal society bringing an action against you, and you've got to defend yourself. So as most people do, you hire a lawyer. So when they were speaking out of turn last time, the judge reminded them, you have excellent representation. Do let them basically, they'll speak on your behalf for you. And then here again, after they heard that there was a motion, essentially, I think it's for motions what they use in legal lands, that Great Ormond Street, again, that's a what. So when Great Ormond Street are saying we don't want them at our next meeting, what they're actually doing is the representation of Great Ormond Street, which is under the orders of the two. I went into the hospital. There's a man and a woman who are the head of it. I highlighted the man on the previous video already. His name escapes me. So he's basically ordered his legals, the people who work as the legal representatives for the hospitals, to obviously make sure that he gets the outcome that he desires. So by doing that, and probably from the manner of the mum and dad in court being emotionally involved, being maybe a little bit discourteous, I wouldn't say they'd be massively discourteous. I think they've probably been extremely patient. But obviously, when you're speaking out of turn in court, I mean, you just watch anything, like even Judge Rinder and Judge Judy. When you speak out of turn, you don't speak out. It's just a brilliant way to piss off the court and piss off anyone who knows about court. So here they stood up and they shouted, "He's our son." 32-year-old Mr. Gard. Mr. Gard, yeah, okay. After the hospital's barrister, Katie Gollop, QC, so that's the Great Ormond Street case, Katie Gollop, said clinicians may not be able to speak freely with the couple present. Oh my God. Okay, so basically they're saying these people are going to interrupt them. They're going to interrupt. Basically, they're not going to be courteous. They're going to disrupt proceedings, and that is obviously an issue from the court's point of view, because courts need to be efficient and swift and not be held up by emotional outbursts. And if obviously they're bringing that to the attention of the judge just so that they can get on with their legal game, because they got representation. There's no reason for the parents to be there. The judge knows that. The legals know that. So yeah, let's get them out of here, because we can crack on with things anyway. Which is basically the truth of the matter. So anytime you get representation, you're not in court. Essentially, you may be there physically, but you're not there. And as soon as you start talking out of turn, the judge will remind you, as he did previously, that you need to speak for your solicitor, mate. You need to speak for your lawyer. I can't hear you. It's not that kind of setting. And then if you still don't get the idea, then obviously you don't know the rules of the game. They're not going to teach you the rules of the game. It would just bring the whole proceedings to a standstill. It's up to your representation to teach you these things. And if you're acting out of turn, the judge will just ask you to be removed, or in this case, the other side will say, look, let's crack on without these people. Yeah, there's just one more thing I want to mention about this. If you see down here, this whole die with dignity, right? So we've got an issue in this country where they're arguing to remove the life support, but who argued to put it on? If to undo something, you would have to have done something first. So clearly, the NHS has a charge to save life whenever possible. So they have the technology of a life support machine to save life, okay? But when it comes to, there's no hope now, we're going to remove it, that unfortunately is not an option, because it changes the whole premise of giving life support. If you can give life support to sustain life, regardless of the prospects, you've decided to extend that baby's life artificially, if you like. You've interfered. So this whole removing the life support to die with dignity, unfortunately, I don't accept that, because someone, as I mentioned previously, someone has to turn that machine off. And unfortunately, you create an issue, and this is why probably they need a legal contract or an agreement from the parents, which they've been very unsuccessful with these particular parents to get. But until they get some sort of authority from the parents, I mean, if they don't get agreement from the parents, and probably maybe a lot of the time they do, I don't know, I haven't looked into how many other kids have had their life support machines switched off. But, without agreement from the parents, it becomes very tricky, because you're going to have a conflict here. And I think maybe that's why the hospital got quickly into the court system about this, because they knew they had no chance with the parents giving up on the baby. But of course, the hospital provided the life support system in the first place, which is why there's a conflict there. As if you're going to provide life support, presumably it's for the whole of life, essentially until this baby dies at 70, 80 years of age, potentially. That's unfortunately the way I see it. That's the commitment you make when you put someone on life support. So the hospital. So it seems as though the judge agreed. Okay, Mr. Justice Francis agreed with the hospital that Charlie's parents should be excluded from the meeting. They shook their heads. And now see, this is the thing, right? So the barrister at Grant Armstrong argues Miss Yates, 31, is now such an expert in the condition that she has the right to be there. So she's almost like a self-trained medical professional, but obviously she does not have any qualifications, so she has no right to be there. I mean, at least he's trying to argue the point that she knows quite a lot. Give her due. She studied this, but at the end of the day, she has no rights as a parent at court, or in court in this particular case, to sit there. It's completely under the jurisdiction of Daddy Judge, and the moving party, the Great Ormond Street, have motioned the judge to exclude the noisy ones from the court. So she's not medically qualified. She's a parent in the court. She doesn't really need to be there. She's represented by solicitors. She's not medically qualified, even though she probably is more knowledgeable about the disease than anyone else, yet they're still going to refuse her entry, which they're totally right to do, because within the legal realms, she hasn't got a certificate or a legal qualification. So yeah, let's kick her out. Here we go. Look, she knows almost as much as anyone in the UK. In the UK. She would say, I am the mother. This is my child. I know more or less as much as these matters as the professionals. I may wish to comment. I wish to observe. These are very crucial words. When you say wish, it's only like a man, a human being, a man, if you like, a woman can wish. Okay, Coca-Cola can't wish. It's not in capacity. Great Ormond Street Hospital cannot wish. It's not within their capacity. So these words the barristers are using are quite clever. So it's kind of underlying the fact that there might be a mother here. I'm the mother. Oh no, yeah, hang on. She would say. That's what he's saying. So he's kind of putting words in her mouth to express the fact to the judge that there is a woman here who obviously given birth to a child. See, here it is. But Mr. Armstrong claims it would be unfair for the baby's mother. So it's gone from child to baby there to be excluded, while Great Ormond Street doctors, with their entrenched view, with their being an arsehole about their view of Charlie's fates, were allowed in. No, that's not actually true, that. Eventually the judge agreed with Miss Yates into the meeting if she agreed not to disrupt experts' debates. Oh, so maybe the dad can't go in then. This weekend, Charlie may have... because the dad's been speaking out of turn. They got the dad out, because he's the one who told the other people to stop, to start telling the truth. And I think he was the one who just said something again, was he now? So they're getting him out, because he's not acting proper. I mean, they haven't given him contempt of court, but it just says, look, you're just out of your depth, buddy. This weekend, Charlie may have another scan to determine his brain development. The judge demanded evidence after the hospital said the head circumference had not changed in 3 months. Miss Yates said it had grown 2 centimetres in a week. Mr. Justice Francis said he would leave it to the parents to decide if they wanted another scan. The reason that's strange is because it's giving responsibility onto the parents to provide evidence into the court. Maybe he's helping them. He's saying, look, if you want to prove that his head's increased in size, you need to order another scan to convince me as judge that what they've said to the court previously is a pack of bullshit, that the head's not grown. Okay, because he's basing his decision on the fact that they're saying head's not growing, he's brain dead, it's all over, and he's like, that's a judge being very sneaky. So look, he's like, the judge said he would leave it to the parents to decide if they wanted another scan.